Hello and welcome. This is the British Muslim. I hope those of you who are fasting in the conventional kind of idea of Ramadan, these 30 days, are having a good Ramadan. That's what I'm doing currently. So I thought I'd make a video on male circumcision in the Quran. Essentially talk about, is it in the Quran? What does the Quran maybe say on it? And should you do it, being a Quran-only Muslim? So, very simply, the short answer is no. Male circumcision is nowhere found in the Quran. However, I suppose there can be arguments both for and against, which I'm going to talk about. Of course, the for and against, some of the arguments are weak, but we'll just kind of explore them and see kind of what these arguments entail. So, the only source of information for mainstream Muslims, which of course talk about male circumcision, if not the Quran, is of course the hadith. You can search the whole Quran and nowhere will you find anything talking or referring to male circumcision. And I do believe, in my own opinion, by now, with all these videos I've made, with all the discussions we've had in the comments, I think by now it's established that many of you know and many of us believe that if God sets out to set a rule, something as significant as not eating swine, circumcision, things like this, then he makes it very clear in the Quran. It's very clear and it's clearly stated. There's no kind of under the blanket interpretation, kind of beating around the bush. When God makes something haram, it's very clear. When God asks you to make a provision, it is very clear. So therefore, based on this argument, by looking at the trend in the Quran and how God portrays his message and his instructions, I think we can say it's not mentioned in the Quran. And therefore, some of these interpretations I'm going to tell you soon should not be interpreted this way. Because if something as significant as circumcision, which can change, it changes a male body permanently, it would be clearly outlined. So I came across an NCBI article. NCBI, for those of you who don't know, is it's the biggest database of biomedical science on the internet. Really good resource. I use it a lot for my nutrition and personal training. So, I'll link it in the description. And essentially, there are a few verses which this author outlines, saying, it's not mentioned in the Quran, but these verses may be interpreted this way. Many popular people who translate the Quran and give interpretations, they have interpreted this to mean circumcision. So, for example, there is one verse here, and I'll link it in the description. This is more so a podcast, so kind of just sit back and kind of just listen. But so there is a verse, and it says, "Who can better in religion than one who submits his whole self to Allah, does good and follows the way of Abraham, the true in faith? For Allah did take Ibrahim for a friend." And so, essentially, what the author has said here is both Jews and Muslims legislate circumcision, and a commandment that is originated with the Prophet Ibrahim. So they're essentially saying that this verse saying that someone who submits to God and follows the way of Abraham, this is someone who is good in faith, they're essentially saying. Now, they're using this to justify that Abraham was instructed to circumcise. And so therefore, again, what we need to remember is that the Quran is perfect and it is complete. Yes, following the way of Ibrahim, it may simply refer to monotheistic belief in this one God. It may refer to more than that, but we cannot make that assumption, especially at such a high level when an action like circumcision will change someone's body for life. So I believe this statement, it cannot be justified by that. Yes, God is saying, follow the way of Abraham. He is a prophet of God, along with, thousands upon thousands of, other prophets. But God says the Quran is complete, and perfect. So to follow something outside of the Quran, when God says the Quran is complete, would contradict it. However, knowing that some texts have been corrupted, some things have changed, from what God is instructing us, what wouldn't be a contradiction is following all the Quran complete, knowing that circumcision is not a requirement in Islam, but also understanding that Abraham followed God, and many of the qualities that Abraham, portrayed back in his lifetime, we should also portray. You kind of have to look at these facts and think, okay, how can we think about these in a way that doesn't contradict anything, doesn't contradict the Quran, And to be honest, I don't think it's literally a back and forth of this pretty much. I don't think I need to go through every single one of these points. You can simply click the link in the description and have a read for yourself. Or you can comment down below what you do believe. But yeah, reflecting on my previous statement, it's nowhere mentioned in the Quran, and it definitely would be, just as, hijab, the concept of hijab, both male and females, covering their private parts, dressing modestly, etc., etc. It's outlined. If something such as hijab is outlined, and by the way, when I say hijab, I'm not referring to the necessary covering of the head of the woman, etc., etc. I've made a video on that as well. If something something like hijab, if that is outlined in the Quran, why do you think something so much more significant, permanent to the body, wouldn't be outlined in the Quran? So just remember, the Quran is perfect and complete. And I look forward to what you have to say in the comments, and I wish you a good Eid. I hope you and your family are well in this pandemic.